Today, the FOMC raised its policy interest rate by 0.75 percentage point, and we anticipate that ongoing increases will be appropriate. My colleagues and I are strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. We have both the tools we need and the resolve that it will take to restore price stability on behalf of American families and businesses. Growth in consumer spending has slowed from last year's rapid pace, in part reflecting lower real disposable income and tighter financial conditions. Activity in the housing sector has weakened significantly, in large part reflecting higher mortgage rates. FOMC participants have marked down their projections for economic activity, with the median projection for real GDP growth standing at just 0.2% this year and 1.2% next year, well below the median estimate of the longer-run normal growth rate. We are moving our policy stance purposefully to a level that will be sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2%. In addition, we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet. The labor market has remained extremely tight, with the unemployment rate near a 50-year low, job vacancies near historical highs, and wage growth elevated. Inflation remains well above our 2% longer-run goal. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. And we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. At today's meeting, the committee raised the target range for the federal funds rate by 0.75 percentage point, bringing the target range to 3 to 3.25%. And we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet. We anticipate that ongoing increases in the target range for the federal funds rate will be appropriate. The historical record cautions strongly against prematurely loosening policy. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting and communicate our thinking as clearly as possible. The median projection for the appropriate level of the federal funds rate is 4.4% at the end of this year. We are taking forceful and rapid steps to moderate demand so that it comes into better alignment with supply. And there will very likely be some softening of labor market conditions. We will keep at it until we're confident the job is done. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
From the New York Times, how you'll know when to slow down these rate increases and how you'll eventually know when to stop.
My main message has not changed at all since Jackson Hole, and we will keep at it until the job is done. And ultimately, we'll want to see clear evidence that inflation is moving back down to 2%.
From CNBC, or can you envision a time when there's a pause to kind of look at what has been wrought in the economy?
At some point, as the stance of policy tightens further, it will become appropriate to slow the pace of rate hikes while we assess how our cumulative policy adjustments are affecting the economy and inflation. What we think we need to do and should do is to move our policy rate to a restrictive level that's restrictive enough to bring inflation down to 2%, where we have confidence of that. We've just moved, I think, probably into the very lowest level of what might be restrictive.
Washington Post. The projections show the unemployment rate rising to 4.4% next year. And historically, that kind of rise in the unemployment rate would typically bring a recession with it.
No one knows whether this process will lead to a recession, or if so, how significant that recession would be. We're committed to getting inflation back down to 2% because we think that a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain later on.
The Wall Street Journal, I imagine you have to have some idea about how you're thinking about your destination, whether it's a stopping point or a pausing point.
Raise our policy stance overall to a level that is restrictive. And by that I mean is meaningfully putting meaningful downward pressure on inflation. That's what we need to see in the stance of policy.
Why forego the more aggressive 100 basis point increase today?
You never want to overreact too much to any one data point.
Reuters, thanks for the opportunity. Is 75 next month the baseline?
You know, we're committed to getting to a restrictive level.
beginning of the beginning, okay? For all of us that lived through 2000, this was 4 years of sheer hell and a grind. Now we have $30 trillion that we have to work through the economy, a recession we have to overcome, a war we need to end, and people all of a sudden assume that 2 or 3 rate hikes and 5 or 6 months of headlines are enough. It's going to take 3 years probably of the slow, meticulous, running off of money, not reintroducing new money. That may mean the bottom doesn't happen for another 18 months.